number 7. It's titled, How Has Christmas Music Changed Throughout the Generations? I know Christmas is over for 2024. However, I'm going to be talking about Christmas songs during this podcast, and since I wasn't able to sing my Christmas song, Santa, on my last podcast, I'm going to share it with you now. After that, we'll talk about Christmas or holiday songs throughout the ages and talk about what era or generation they came from so you can see how they have changed over time. Here is my Christmas song. I wrote both the words and the music. It was published in 2021 and it's called Santa. Here we go. Santa, I'm not a kid anymore, but there's something I've gotta ask you for. It is something one seldom finds out under the tree. Santa, I know you're a busy man, and I don't know how this'll fit with your plans, but here's a brief description of what I need. Someone who will hold me close and leave me room to grow. Someone whose personality has that special glow. Someone who I can fall in love with, who will fall in love with me. I ask you, Santa, can you help me, please? Santa, I do not steal, cheat, or lie, though I have to admit I sometimes cry. I've been waiting for the right lover an awful long time. I sure don't mean to complain at all. I do have good friends and enjoy when they call, but maybe with your help that I couldn't find someone who will hold me close and leave me room to grow. Someone whose personality has that special glow. Someone who I can fall in love with, who will fall in love with me. I ask you, Santa, can you help me, please? Someone who will hold me close and leave me room to grow. Someone whose personality has that special glow. Someone who I can fall in love with, who will fall in love with me. I ask you, Santa, can you help me, please? Oh, oh, I ask you, Santa, oh, oh, oh. Can you help me? Please. I hope you enjoyed it. Now on with Christmas music, or how Christmas music has changed during the generations. First, did you know that 2/3 of the most popular holiday songs today came from just 2 decades? When we get there, I will let you know which decades they were. Okay, What about the remaining 1/3 of the holiday songs? A lot of them were published well before 1940. A few examples are, somewhere during the 1700s, the 12 Days of Christmas was written, or on the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. In 1909, 5 gold rings were added. In 1719, joy to the world. In 1744, oh come all ye faithful. In 1818, silent night, holy night. In 1857, jingle bells, jingle bells. Okay, comment. As one would expect, these are mostly religious songs. Jingle Bells isn't religious, but it is very simply written, which was common for the time. Starting the generations is the greatest generation, born 1900 to 1927. This generation was shaped by World War I and the Great Depression. Traits: they were hardworking and they respected authority. 1916. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth. Okay, 1921. Old Lang Syne. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old Lang Syne? Comment. O Holy Night was a religious song similar to those before it, and Old Lang Syne is a simple, somewhat repetitive New Year's song. These songs fit with this generation being hardworking and respecting authority. How about the next generation? The silent generation, born 1928 to 1945. This generation was shaped by World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Traits: they were conformist, loyal, and followed rules. 1935. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Okay, this song was written before the 1940s and is similar to the songs in the generations before it. But before we get into the music of the actual 1940s, the last part of this generation, let's take a look at the next generation. The baby boomer generation, born 1946 to 1964, shaped by the me generation, Woodstock, and civil rights. Traits: rock and roll, question authority, great consumers. In the 1940s and 1950s, or the last part of the silent generation and the first part of the baby boomer generation, is where 2/3 of the top holiday songs of today were published. Just to name a few: 1942, White Christmas, or I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. 1943, I'll be home for Christmas. 1944, have yourself a merry little Christmas. 1945, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. 1948, Sleigh Ride, or just hear those sleigh bells jingling, ring-ting jingling too. 1949, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. 1950, silver bells, it's Christmas time in the city. 1951, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. 1959, Jingle Bell Rock, or Jingle Bell, Jingle Bell, Jingle Bell Rock. Most of these songwriters have already passed away, yet their music lives on. The question is, why did only 2 decades create 2/3 of the most popular songs ever, even 70, 80 years later? Well, partly because Christmas became commercialized during the 1940s. Companies spent more on holiday marketing, so Christmas became a much bigger deal than it had been. For more history on this, listen to podcast 6, the Christmas podcast. These songs also became well known partly because movies were becoming popular in the 40s, and around half of the Christmas holiday songs in the 40s and 50s were written for movies. Movies really get songs into people's heads. But that doesn't explain why we're still playing the old music today. Why do we still love it? One reason, jazz was the predominant music of the 40s, and jazz gave songwriters of this time a bigger, more complex style to draw from. The result is the music has an earnestness, a yearning to it that has a more poignant effect on the listener. Another reason, what was happening when this music was being created? These classics were being composed both during and shortly after World War II. Soldiers were overseas and missing their families. Families were missing their soldiers. And the families and soldiers had gone through hardship during this time. You may think when the baby boomers generation, 1946 to 1964, dies out, these songs will die out, but not so. If the baby boomers all died out tomorrow, these songs are so ingrained in our culture, we would continue to love these songs year after year. It just simply wouldn't be Christmas without them. Comment. The cultural feeling of the 40s and 50s was fear, hope, longing, and yearning. And this came out in the songs. These songs were wrapped in innocence, earnestness, sincerity, and deeply felt sentiment. This type of music can't typically be recreated by someone from the modern world because we've lost access to the longing and yearning that's essential to create these feelings. These songs and the ones before them are called the classics. Very few holiday songs were highly rated after the baby boomer generation. Generation X, born 1965 to 1980, shaped by the Lost Generation, Watergate, the Challenger explosion, and MTV. Traits, latchkey kids, skeptical, independent. 1975, it's gonna be a cold, cold Christmas. 1979, Grandma got run over by a reindeer. I like that one. Comments. From the titles, you can tell things have changed. You can also tell from the titles these are skeptical and independent songs. No longing and yearning here. In contrast to the songs before them, these are a new type of song. Keep in mind, most of the classics were recorded again and again, generation after generation, by different artists. So we're still hearing them in this generation. Okay, the millennial generation, also known as Gen Y, born 1981 to 1996, shaped by 9/11, Columbine, and the internet. Traits, ask why, creative, optimistic. It's 1994, over 30 years after all those 40s and 50s classics, and we have the biggest hit of all time, All I Want for Christmas Is You, written by Mariah Carey and Walter Afanasieff. It is a bigger song than the old classics. This song is a modern classic, a mega hit. What about the other songs of this generation? 1984, Last Christmas, I Gave You My Heart. Okay, 1988, Mistletoe and Wine. It's Christmas time, mistletoe and wine. Comment. This generation, along with the last generation, had words that were not as innocent as before. Each generation had to come up with new things to say and different rhythms of music to support what was said. Music was constantly changing. Great songs were made throughout all the generations. Of songs published in the last 25 years, there were not many top songs at all. In Generation Z, born 1997 to 2010, shaped by terrorism, social media, mobile tech, and cyberbullying, traits pragmatic, cautious, tech-dependent, individualistics. Okay, 2000. Where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you? 202. I'm hanging round the mistletoe, hanging round the mistletoe. In 2009, Cherry Cherry Christmas. Wish you a very merry, cherry Christmas. Comment. Again, new attitudes, new sounds of music, more new ideas, but still few that captured deeply held sentiment. Also note, in all of these generations, there are new songs that don't sound like they fit into the generation they were published in. The songwriters were all different ages and were going for all different feelings and sounds. Generation Alpha, born 2010 to 2022, shaped by spending their whole life in tech. Traits: digital native, globally minded, self-aware, and confident consumers. 2010, underneath the tree. You're all that I need underneath the tree. 2014, Santa, tell me if you're really there. Then 2019, 2021, and 2022, All I Want for Christmas Is You. It's a #1 song for all 3 years again. This was a mega hit over 2 different generations. Comment. Even though All I Want for Christmas is considered a modern classic and was written in 1994, all 3 songs above, including Underneath the Tree and Santa Tell Me, are very much sung songs, meaning they are harder to sing than most songs. They're more of a production, more sophisticated. They have new beats and new rhythms. These are songs for self-aware and confident people. But as nice and fancy as they are, they still don't have the longing, earnestness, sincerity, or yearning that the classics have. Now, these comments are my comments. Different people would have different comments, of course. Okay, now back to the holiday songs of the 40s and 50s. Let's visit a couple of them again. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, or I'll be home for Christmas, or it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Okay, now my song Santa, the verse. Santa, I'm not a kid anymore. Chorus, someone who will hold me close, yet leave me room to grow. Can you hear the innocence, earnestness, and longing that you heard in the 40s and 50s songs in Santa? But wait, Santa was written in 2021. That means it should fit into the Generation Alpha, which would mean it should sound like those last sophisticated songs. But it doesn't. Well, I was raised in the 50s with the classics. My parents played them on the radio back in the 50s. So I would say even though Santa was copywritten in 2021, it would fit into the classic 40s and 50s era. Now, Santa is not a classic song yet, but with the proper marketing, could it be? Maybe. That leads us to think about something. I would love for it to be well marketed, but to do that, it would likely need to be in someone's Christmas album. Albums, like movies, give a song more exposure. I don't know if that will happen, but please help me wish it. Okay, that concludes our How Christmas Music Has Changed Through the Generations podcast. What will my next podcast be about? How about visiting some people that live in a state park and playing some campfire songs? I am looking forward to my next podcast. Take care and enjoy yourselves.